Top 10 Most Corrupt Politicians of All Time. This list features an assassination, money laundering, bribes, quid pro quo, and downright corruption. So be sure to stay till the end and let us know if you agree or disagree with our list. Number 10. Paul Powell, former Illinois Secretary of State. On the surface, Powell seemed to be just your ordinary politician, but after his death on October 10, 1970, that all changed. Secretary of State by day and criminal by night, before his death, Paul Powell had managed to build a staggering $5 million net worth on a $30,000 a year government salary. Powell had seemingly built his wealth through illegal cash bribes. He would use his influence to give non-competitive state contracts to friends and political associates. Powell would not serve any time due to his crimes not being discovered until after his death. Number 9. Ray Nagin, former mayor of New Orleans. Just 4 years after Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans and the city was still in the midst of rebuilding, Ray Nagin's political career would be destroyed forever. Nagin would be indicted on 21 charges in connection to known associates Greg Meffert, Frank Fradella, and Mark St. Pierre. Frank Fradella pleaded guilty to conspiracy to bribe a public official. He had given Nagin $50,000 and a free truckload of granite for his son in exchange for political favors. Nagin and his family took vacations that were paid for by Mark St. Pierre, who had made substantial mayoral campaign donations. As the evidence against him piled up, Mayor Nagin would destroy 5,400 incriminating emails, many of which were tied to his later conviction. Number 8. Edwin Edwards, former governor of Louisiana. Gambling in Las Vegas, extramarital affairs, and small shady business deals were how the rumors started for Edwards. These would have no credibility if it was not coming from one of his former bodyguards. Clyde Bedreen, the bodyguard who made the accusations, would later go on to publish a tell-all book called Just Taking Orders. Bedreen would meet his demise in 1986 in an alleged extramarital affair of his own. Governor Edwards would go under the radar until he was caught on tape by FBI surveillance in 1997, giving former Congressman Cleo Fields an estimated $20,000. After this moment, his career went downhill. Edwards was tied to an $845,000 for-profit prison scheme and received a bribe of $400,000 from San Francisco 49ers owner Edward J. Bartolo Jr. Governor Edwards faced 26 charges, but only 17 stuck, in which included racketeering, extortion, money laundering, mail fraud, and wire fraud. Number 7. Randy Duke Cunningham, former United States Representative. From selling $600 congressional sealbug knives on his personal website without government approval to pushing the Department of Defense to buy a $20 million document digitization system that they did not need, Randy Cunningham had one thing on his mind: making money. And since Cunningham was a member of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, he found ways to make shady deals with government contractors. Mitchell Wade was one of the defense contractors that had given Cunningham access to his yacht free of charge and paying off some of his debts. In exchange, Mitchell Wade's defense firm was given millions of dollars in defense contracts. This led to the FBI raiding Cunningham's and Mitchell's homes, as well as MZM Incorporated, which was the defense firm Mitchell worked for. Number 6. Spiro Agnew, former Vice President of the United States. Spiro Agnew served with Richard Nixon from 1969 to 1973. Although both men's careers ended due to corruption, their crimes were separated. Agnew had breezed through most of his life, being considered an honest man by most. This all changed in 1973 when the United States Attorney for the District of Maryland opened an investigation on suspicion of the following: criminal conspiracy, bribery, extortion, and tax fraud. He had received hundreds of thousands of dollars in kickbacks from contractors since his days as Baltimore County Executive, which continued while holding the office of Vice President. A year later, Spiro Agnew resigned as Vice President. Richard Nixon would resign as President. Some would say that they were one of the most corrupt administrations to date. Leave us a comment letting us know what political corruption has shocked you the most in your lifetime. Number 5. Ray Blanton, former governor of Tennessee. Blanton seems to have been both a politician and a salesman. He would sell liquor licenses for exorbitant prices and would also sell pardons. Before he left office in 1979, he pardoned 52 state prisoners. Out of the 52, 20 were convicted murderers. In 1977, he fired the chairwoman of the state's Board of Pardons and Paroles for refusing to release prisoners who had bribed officials in exchange for pardons. Blanton's office at the state capitol building would be raided by the FBI, and the documents that they seized would be used against him in court. He would go on to escape the charges for the pardons, but was charged with mail fraud, conspiracy, and extortion for selling liquor licenses. Number 4. Huey Long, former governor of Louisiana. Huey Long had ambitions to run for president of the United States. Many of Long's actions as governor were heavily criticized, but somehow he managed to stay in power. In his first year as governor, he would declare war on immoral behavior and went on to have the Louisiana National Guard raid gambling dens and brothels. Gambling equipment was burned and over $25,000 was confiscated, then added to government funds. This was $25,000 in 1929, which would be around $420,000 today. Huey Long was just getting started, and that same year, he would have the governor's mansion completely torn down, then rebuilt with prison labor from the state penitentiary. One of his goals was to redistribute the wealth in Louisiana, and becoming senator was the next step. His actions had not gone unnoticed, and many, including his own lieutenant governor, voted for his impeachment. The impeachment surprisingly failed, and Huey Long was out for revenge. He would use his power as governor to fire the relatives of anyone who had voted against him. Once he became senator, his power and control over the state of Louisiana grew immensely. Along the way, Long had created an army of enemies. This came to an end when Long was shot in the torso by Carl Weiss. He was taken to the hospital where he passed away from his injury. Number 3. James Trafficking, former U.S. House of Representatives. Even prison would not stop him from running for office. After being convicted in 2002 on 10 counts including bribery, racketeering, and tax evasion, the House Ethics Committee took it a step further and voted to completely expel him from Congress. The votes came in at 420 to 1, and the only person to vote for him was another representative, Kerry Condit, who was facing his own scandal. While in prison, Trafficking attempted to circumvent the ruling by running as an independent and managed to get 15% of the vote. His open support of Nazi concentration camp guard John DeMankiw was another factor that added to his unpopularity. Number 2. Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York. This is one of the most recent politicians on the list. Due to the pandemic, Andrew Cuomo became one of the most public figures in 2020. He was easily on the road for a presidential run in the future. All of this changed when allegations started to surface about his need to touch others. It started with one, then another, and by the end there were a total of 11 women accusing him of inappropriate behavior. The accusations, combined with reports of his administration hiding the true loss of life at nursing homes by as much as 50%, was the nail in the coffin. At this point, Andrew Cuomo knew his political career would not survive an extended public legal battle on both fronts. On August 10, 2021, under immense public and political pressure, Andrew Cuomo resigned as the governor of New York. As of 2022, there are rumors swirling of him returning to the political arena sometime in the near future. Number 1. William M. Tweed, former New York senator. No list on political corruption is complete without William Tweed. Tweed passed away in 1878, and his level of corruption in politics is still talked about today. Tweed was known for bribing everyone through his money, power, and influence. 1869 was the year he would fully seize power over the government of New York City. He had his friends and colleagues put in positions that helped him maintain control over the entire city. They became known as the Tweed Ring and would use their positions to steal taxpayers' money through overpaying contractors and received a 20% kickback each time. Records from 1867 show that they paid a carpenter $360,751 for 1 month's work. which is $7 million today, and a plasterer $133,187 for 2 days of work, totaling $2.5 million today. One of their largest thefts of taxpayer money was during the building of the New York County Courthouse. By the end, they had inflated the price to $13 million, which is $252 million today. This continued for nearly 10 years, eventually ending with Tweed's empire crumbling, him fleeing to Spain, being brought back on a U.S. warship, and later passing away from pneumonia in 1878. Don't forget to like the video and leave us a comment letting us know what political corruption you have seen in your lifetime.